to him as well. While he was known as the Trapper and still is, at the age of 83, Barry Trapp is being inducted into the Saskatchewan Sports Hall of Fame Saturday in Regina, as you well know, Rob. As a player, Barry played for the Melville Millionaires, then off to the American Hockey League's Rochester Americans as a professional. He played hockey in places like Denver and Tulsa, then came home to Balcarres, and it wasn't long before he was back in hockey with the Pat Capitals and Canadians, Regina Bat Blues, and of course the Pats. In 85-86, Barry became the head coach and general manager of the Moose Jaw Warriors, then the director of scouting for Hockey Canada, chief scout for the NHL's Central Scouting System, 4 years in charge of amateur scouting for the Maple Leafs, then worked for the Phoenix Coyotes. Then, because he's such a nice guy, he went back to the Pats and helped them out one more time. 62 years, Barry. 62 years in competitive hockey. Where people don't like each other, and yet they like you. How did you manage to be in that sport for 62 years and everybody liked you?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's awesome to talk to two old friends, I'll tell you. And I just want to thank both you guys for how kind you were to me when I was involved. And I also got a very nice text message from an old friend, Greg Drinnan, today. So it's nice to be associated with old friends. You know, it's looking back on it, guys. It's amazing how it all started out. Just applying for an ad in the Leader Post. Hey, Rob, the Leader Post.
Yay, Leader Post.
Regina Community Boys Hockey League. We're looking for a coach to work on the weekends with the midget A team. So I sent in my resume. And then Doug and I, my son, we went to Regina Community Boys Hockey League banquet, and at the door was Bob Strum. And he was there, and he was greeting, wanted to meet the young kids, and I introduced myself, and he said, are you the guy that sent in that resume to the Regina Boys Community League? And I said, yeah. He said, I like your resume, and the only thing on it was my playing days, and I'd also been a level 5 instructor with Hockey Canada. So he said, could you come to the Agrodome, the old Agrodome, tomorrow? I said, sure. Right there, he offered me the job of coaching the Pat, starting with the Pat Capitals, and that's how it all started, guys.
Go ahead, Rob.
I mean, I remember the 83-84 Pats, and you know, Strummer was the head coach and GM, and you were such an integral part of that. And just, there's so many milestones in your career. I'm almost embarrassed just to point to one, but that's where I got to know of you and eventually to meet you was in your work with the Pats and in the Western Hockey League.
Yeah. Also, Rob, at the same time, you and the great Bob Hughes was with the Leader Post, and the coverage with the Regina Pats was amazing. We used to, how things have changed, used to have a media night and invite all the media in, give them the team jackets and stuff like that. So yeah, you know what, Bob Strum, I worked for him for 5 years, never signed a contract. Everything was a handshake, and he was very honest, and I got everything that he promised me.
That doesn't surprise me. You know, I've always admired and liked the people where their word is their bond. And, you know, in the profession that I pursued, I mean, it was absolutely essential. I mean, if you gave your word to somebody that say, okay, I will protect your identity, or, you know, if you assure someone that it's confidential, or if you assure someone that it's off the record, a conversation is off the record, if you ever betray that, the repercussions are endless because word gets around. And and I think when Don's preface was so perfect. I mean, how many people, you know, have the kind of reputation that you do, Barry? And over 62 years in hockey industry, you'd think you'd make one enemy, but I can't think of one. You'd think you'd almost do it by accident, and it's something to admire and something to envy. I probably made 6 enemies just during this conversation. So
I think, Rob, the big key for me was associating with all the media, like being with Hockey Canada and the Toronto Maple Leafs, I found out had to be honest with the media. I never lied to them, and I think that was the key to it. And that to me that was important, and I made so many great connections over the years, like including you two. But I can say one thing honestly: CKTV and the Leader Post is not the same without you two guys. I read the Leader Post every day online. First, I go to sports, and then I got to go check the obituary and see how many of my friends I lost.
It's
the
very.
Post is so fortunate now to have Taylor Shire and Daryl Davis, and
Daryl's amazing. Yeah,
I was going to talk to you about back in your American Hockey League days, Barry, because that was before expansion. Of course, the NHL expanded in '67. You played before that when it was so difficult to make the NHL with only the original six. Everybody used to say when you played in the American Hockey League, all of those guys really should have been in the NHL, should they not have? I mean, the caliber of hockey in that league then was incredible. It was just that there weren't enough teams to be able to play for in the NHL.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Don. Like in Rochester, we were the #1 farm team for the Leafs. We had Jerry Cheevers in goal, Al Arbor, Mike Walton, all those, Johnny McMillan, all those guys, Jerry Eamon. I mean, it was only 6 teams, but I'll tell you what, the money back then, Don Jury played with us, and that's how he got his nickname. He was such a miserable guy back then. We called him Sour Grapes, and it shortened it to Grapes.
Well, was he as tough as he pretended to be on TV?
No, he had a heart as big as gold, and he was a true Canadian. Now, when I was with the Pats, I got him to come out to one of our Pat breakfasts, Rob, which you remember. Then I was in Moose Jaw. I called him, and he came out and spoke at the Warrior banquet. No, he's a true Canadian, loved Canadian hockey, and he's a great man, and I had a lot of respect for him.
I mean, if you look at it back then, I mean, there were 6 NHL teams. Now there's 5 times as many. All the players who could have had 10, 12, 15-year NHL careers and maybe didn't even get a sniff in the National Hockey League. You look at it at one time before teams were required to have 2 goaltenders, and it wasn't until the mid-'60s that a backup goaltender became mandatory. I mean, there were 6 goaltending jobs at the highest level of hockey.
Yeah,
6.
and
you
Rob,
had Sawchuk, you had Bauer, you had Hall.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys weren't moving anywhere.
And you know what, Rob and Don, the backup goalies on those teams were the trainers. Like Lefty Wilson in Detroit. And the '67 draft, I got drafted out of the Toronto organization by LA. And the minimum salary back then was $12,500. And we had a meeting. LA were training in Guelph, Ontario. And Terry Sawchuk, I also got drafted out of the Leaf organization. He said, we had a Saturday afternoon off. He said, hey, guys, we're going to have a meeting upstairs in the Legion this afternoon. You got this young lawyer I want you to meet. And I sat in the first player meeting with Alan Eagleson, believe it or not.
Wow. That's crazy. He was a charmer.
Who's the first goalie in the history of the Los Angeles Kings? And people will say Sawchuk, but it was Wayne Rutledge. Sawchuk was injured for the start of the 67-68 season. Yeah.
Can't beat you amazing. On stats, man.
No, nobody can beat Rob on stats. Over 62 years, I mean, so many memories, Barry. I don't know why it took the Saskatchewan Hockey Hall of Fame so long to put you into it, but who would you count as your best friends, the best people you got to know over 62 years up? Who are some of the people who would rise to the surface as people you really liked and admired and appreciated their friendship?
Well, starting out, of course, Bob Strome. Secondly would be Jim Gregory, who hired me in the NHL. My friend Pat Quinn, who hired me with the Leafs, and Pat Quinn and I, believe it or not, were line mates and teammates in Tulsa. There's so many, Bob Nicholson, Hockey Canada. You know what? There's so many people that were so good to me, and lost a lot of them already. But they were very honest people. I mean, they were people that appreciated what you did, and I think what's lost now is the I don't know. There's too many teams. It's good for the players. There's no doubt. It gives every kid a chance. But the honesty and the thing, the people. Back then we had no computers. It was word of mouth. We traveled, and the biggest thing for me was when I went to work for Hockey Canada. I got a real wake-up call because I never realized how important hockey was in Canada. I mean, from Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. When you go to a midget A hockey game, playoff, excuse me, in the Maritimes, 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, there's 3,500 people in the rink. Amazing.
Yep. The fabric of the country, really, hockey. Now, are you sort of sad that, I mean, let me put it this way. Are people as honest now in the game of hockey as they were a few decades ago or 3 decades ago?
I think it's totally different. I look at the coach firings and that are going on in the NHL now, and there's a lot of good coaches and friends of mine that have been fired. Mike Babcock, gee, sir, that it seems to me like what has happened now, the coach is always the first guy to go. And the coach is only as good as the players, the management and staff get them. But there's no, I remember Billy Martin, and you love this, Rob. When he was coaching the Yankees, they said, how do you feel? How's your security? He says, I come to Yankee Stadium every day. I park my van headed out of town, and I leave the motor running.
Well, Robbie got the last question.
It's totally changed in terms of, I mean, there was a time when the coaches and the GMs had so much power, and the players had off-season jobs in many cases, even at the National Hockey League level, and because there were so few jobs and so few teams, they held the fate of players in their hands. And now when you look at what the players are making and the long-term contracts and no trade clauses and the guaranteed contracts, et cetera, I mean, it is totally flipped. And I think that probably lends itself to the coaches being more expendable or deemed to be more expendable than the players. Whereas once upon a time, there was that absolute and in many cases unfettered power.
Well, the thing is, too, Rob, I agree to 100%. But back in the American Hockey League, the only thing you got, if you got beat out in the first round of the playoffs, you got home to get the better jobs that were available. The longer you went in the playoffs, there was a joke that if you got beat out in the first round, you got what the advantage was you got to get the first jobs. The worst other thing was you couldn't drink bottled beer; you only could drink draft beer because it was cheaper.
Well, congratulations, Barry, on your induction into the Saskatchewan Hockey Hall of Fame on Saturday. I thank you for joining us. I thank you, Rob, for also joining us to talk to Barry. As SportsCage continues in just a moment.